I slammed my hand against the heavy oak table, rattling the perfectly arranged napkins and china. My heart thundered in my chest, louder than the ticking grandfather clock in the corner of the dining room. Across the table, my mother-in-law's face froze in shock. The tension in the air was thick enough to slice with the carving knife poised beside the turkey. "Enough, Elaine," I declared, my usually meek voice echoing through the Marshall family's stately dining room. "I'm done with your lies." A stunned hush fell over the entire table. My husband, Eric, stared at me, his eyes wide. His relatives, an aunt, a couple of uncles, grandparents, looked at me like I was a stranger who'd suddenly crashed their Thanksgiving feast. But I couldn't swallow my feelings anymore. Not when my mother-in-law, Elaine Marshall, had tormented me for years under the guise of family unity. I'd reached my breaking point. At last, in front of all these watchful eyes in Maryville, Indiana, I was going to show this family who I really was. A woman who refused to be bullied any longer. Rewind 5 years. I was 27, full of optimism, and newly engaged to Eric Marshall, my college sweetheart. After graduation, I moved from my cozy hometown in Wisconsin to Eric's side in Maryville, determined to make this new chapter work. The first time I met his family, I arrived with a bouquet of sunflowers in one hand and excitement fluttering inside me. His mother, Elaine, greeted me at their spacious colonial-style house on Glenwood Lane. She was a vision of polished elegance, tailored sweater set, salon-perfect hair, manicured nails. She accepted my flowers with a gracious nod. "Naomi, dear," she said, carefully eyeing my outfit. "You're so thoughtful to bring these." Her tone was pleasant enough, but something about the way she sized me up left me feeling judged. Over dinner, Elaine inquired about my position as a junior copywriter at a local ad agency. "It's lovely that you're putting that English degree to use," she said, voice laced with mild condescension. "At least you're not squandering your education." I laughed it off, attributing my discomfort to first meeting jitters. Eric, oblivious, simply squeezed my hand under the table and beamed with pride when I told his parents how much I loved my job. But as we drove back to Eric's apartment that night, an uneasy feeling settled in my chest. I asked him, "Do you think your mom likes me?" He smiled, as if the answer was obvious. "Of course she does, Naomi. She's just protective. She'll warm up." I wanted so badly to believe him, so I dismissed the chill creeping through my gut. Little did I know, that chill was only the first gust of a long, cold storm brewing between Elaine and me. Eric and I had a small, intimate wedding a year later, right here in Maryville. Elaine arrived in a champagne-colored dress that nearly rivaled my own in brightness. My best friend, Mia, whispered that it was a classic mother-in-law move, just subtle enough to look accidental, but pointed enough to send a message. I brushed off Mia's comment. I was too elated to focus on petty details that day. I should have taken it as a warning. After we returned from our honeymoon, Elaine's help became a steady presence in our lives. She insisted on decorating our apartment, showing up with random home decor and imposing her taste on our space. She had a spare key, for emergencies, Eric insisted, but used it for surprise visits at all hours. One Saturday morning, I was still in my pajamas when she appeared in the kitchen, frying eggs on our stove. "Good morning, sunshine," she greeted brightly, though it startled me so badly I nearly screamed. "Eric told me how much you two love my breakfast, so I thought I'd treat you." Eric strolled in, half awake, and happily devoured her cooking, clueless to how off balance I felt. Whenever I tried to draw a boundary, like asking her to call before coming, Elaine would feign a wounded look. "I'm only trying to look out for you," she'd say, her voice quivering, as if I'd just banished her from our lives. "But if you'd rather I stop caring," I'd always backtrack, guilt gnawing at me. I started to wonder if I really was ungrateful or oversensitive, just as she implied. Eric, caught between us, would plead, "Let it go, Naomi. She's just being a mom. It's how she shows love." Hoping to keep the peace, I would force a smile and swallow my discomfort. Over time, I grew so used to walking on eggshells around Elaine that it became second nature. In the months that followed, Elaine's subtle manipulations escalated. I discovered she'd been making snide comments about me to her friends and neighbors. At a neighborhood cookout, our neighbor Mrs. Gonzalez approached me with a sympathetic smile. "I heard from Elaine that work's been draining you," she said, patting my arm. "You poor thing. Maybe you should let Elaine help out more around the house. It stunned me. Elaine had been spinning a narrative that I was overworked, helpless, in dire need of her rescue. Meanwhile, to me, she complained that I wasn't doing enough, hinting I was lazy or incompetent. The dissonance gave me whiplash. One night, I finally broke down. I called Mia from my car, parked outside our apartment. I poured out everything: Elaine's meddling, the gaslighting, the subtle put-downs. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my cheeks. "Naomi," Mia said firmly, "you're not crazy. Your mother-in-law is the problem, not you. She's a classic manipulator." My best friend's validation felt like a lifeline. I clung to her words, but a knot of dread still lingered. How was I supposed to fix this if Eric refused to see the problem? It all came to a head on an ordinary Wednesday. I came home from work and found Eric sitting on the couch, my private journal open on the coffee table. A jolt of panic seized my chest. That journal was my safe space. I wrote my rawest feelings in it, including my frustration with Elaine and, at times, Eric's inability to shield me from her. "Elaine found this today," Eric said, his voice clipped. "She was here cleaning when it apparently fell out from under the sofa. She read it, Naomi." My knees nearly buckled. I kept that journal in my nightstand. There was no way it merely fell under the couch. Elaine had been snooping, and of course she'd seized this opportunity to stir up drama. "Eric, you weren't meant to see that," I said in a trembling voice. I was venting. It's just frustration I couldn't express out loud. He flipped through the pages, heartbreak etched on his face. "I saw what you wrote about me and my mom. You said you felt trapped, that you sometimes regret marrying into this family," he swallowed. "Is that really how you feel?" Tears pricked my eyes. I was upset. I felt alone. But he was too angry and hurt to listen. Grabbing his coat, he announced he'd be spending the night at his parents' house, away from me. "I need some time," he muttered, shutting the door behind him. I stood there, staring at the journal, feeling betrayed and helpless. My mother-in-law had orchestrated the perfect move, violating my privacy and turning Eric against me. The sting of Eric's absence hit hard, but beneath the tears and shock, a new fire ignited. Enough was enough. Early the next morning, I formulated a plan. Elaine had always underestimated me, viewing me as a timid pushover. I'd use that to my advantage. I texted her, politely requesting to talk. I pretended I wanted to apologize, feeding her ego. "Naomi, dear, come by at 9, she replied promptly. Eric left to clear his head. "We can talk alone." Perfect. I slipped my phone into my purse, tapped the voice recorder app to confirm it worked, and headed to her house. When I arrived, Elaine welcomed me with a self-satisfied smile, likely envisioning me begging for forgiveness. We sat in her lavish living room, the walls adorned with decades of family photos. I feigned remorse. "Elaine, I'm so sorry," I murmured, eyes lowered. "I never wanted to hurt you or Eric. I just feel so lost." Her gaze glinted with triumph. "You should be sorry," she said, voice tinted with false sympathy. "Eric's devastated, and all I've ever done is try to help you." I dug my nails into my palms to keep from shouting. Instead, I pressed gently. "Is there any chance you'd forgive me? Maybe this family would be better off without me." She hesitated before dropping the act altogether. "If you truly loved Eric," she declared, "you'd step aside. He needs someone who respects his mother and upholds our family's traditions. You've never truly fit in." Bingo. I'd gotten her on record saying exactly what I needed. My phone, hidden in my purse, was capturing every cruel word. I left her house with a polite smile and a promise to think about what's best for Eric. But inside, I was on fire. This time, I would be the one in control. That afternoon was Thanksgiving Day. Tradition demanded a big feast at Elaine and Greg Marshall's home, with extended family in attendance. I knew Elaine would prefer I stay away, ashamed and silent. Too bad for her. I had no intention of letting her spin more lies. I arrived late, clutching a store-bought pumpkin pie. The living room chatter died immediately when I walked in. Elaine's eyes flickered in disbelief. "Oh, Naomi," she said with a tight smile. "I told everyone you were ill. I'm surprised to see you up and about." I set the pie on the counter and stepped into the dining room, where the table was laden with turkey, stuffing, and cranberry sauce. The tension was palpable. Eric's gaze locked onto me. I could see the confusion and lingering hurt. Elaine, determined to hold the reins, cleared her throat. "Let's all give thanks," she announced sweetly. "Even through misunderstandings, family stands together. Isn't that right, Naomi?" Her words dripped with faux generosity. My heart pounded, but I knew I couldn't back down. I set my fork aside with a deliberate clank. "A misunderstanding," I echoed, my voice quiet but firm. "Now's not the time," she said smoothly. "We can sort this out later." I glanced at Eric, whose eyes pleaded for an explanation. Then, breathing deeply, I stood. "I think everyone deserves to know the truth, right here, right now." I retrieved my phone from my purse and tapped play on the voice recorder. Suddenly, Elaine's own voice filled the room. "He needs someone who respects his mother and upholds our family's traditions. You've never truly fit in." A collective gasp rippled around the table. Elaine's face blanched. In the hushed room, the recording continued. "If you truly loved Eric, you'd step aside. You should know what the right thing to do is." I paused the recording. My hands trembled, but I met Elaine's furious gaze. "That was from our talk this morning. The one where you told me I should leave Eric for his own good." All eyes shifted to Elaine. Eric rose slowly, his expression torn between shock and betrayal. "Mom, what is this?" he asked, voice shaking. Elaine flailed for an excuse. I was just trying to help." Naomi came to me, desperate. I was offering solutions. She took it out of context. "No," I cut in. "You outright said you never thought I fit into this family. You said I should walk away. That's not help, Elaine. That's sabotage." Eric's grandparents looked appalled. His father, Greg, stared at his wife in silence. No one jumped to her defense. The carefully curated facade Elaine had built for years was crumbling under her own words. Desperate, she turned to Eric. "Eric, sweetheart, I'm your mother. You know how much I love you. I only wanted." Eric's voice broke with anger and hurt. "You read Naomi's private journal, manipulated me, and told her to leave me. That's not love, that's control. I can't believe I didn't see this before." Elaine's shoulders sagged as the truth settled over the room. She looked smaller somehow, corners of her mouth quivering. I almost felt sorry for her, but then I remembered the countless days of dread, the tears, the self-doubt she'd inflicted on me. I took in a shaky breath, addressing the entire family. "I'm done being silent. I love Eric, and I'm not leaving him, but the old dynamic ends today. We won't tolerate meddling or disrespect anymore." My voice might have wavered with emotion, but I stood tall, my gaze steady. Greg finally spoke, his tone grave. "Elaine, I think we should all take a step back tonight. Let them go home and have some peace." He looked at me with remorse. "Naomi, I'm so sorry for all this." Elaine said nothing, her eyes shining with tears she refused to shed in front of everyone. Eric gently touched my shoulder. "We're leaving," he said, voice subdued, yet resolute. "We need time to figure things out, together." Without waiting for permission or protest, we left. The hush in the dining room remained as we stepped out into the chilly November air. That night, Eric and I talked for hours in our small apartment. With the full truth before him, he confessed his guilt and regret. "I should have believed you," he murmured, eyes heavy with sorrow. "I was just in denial about my mom." I held his hand, tears blurring my vision. "I understand. She's your mother, and no one wants to see that side of someone they love. But from now on, we have to stand together." The next day, we changed the locks on our apartment door. No more unexpected morning visits. Eric called Elaine and laid out firm boundaries. No dropping by unannounced, no going behind my back. If she wanted to be part of our lives, it would be on equal, respectful terms. Elaine, reeling from the public exposure, stayed silent for a while. A few relatives reached out to me privately, expressing shock and offering support. It felt surreal. After years of carrying this burden alone, people finally saw the truth. In the following weeks, Eric and I focused on repairing our relationship. We went on long walks through the frosty parks of Maryville, talking openly about the future. We spent quiet nights watching holiday movies, comforted by the simple sound of each other's breathing. One day, Elaine finally called. She apologized, truly apologized for her behavior. She admitted her fear of losing her son and acknowledged she'd gone too far. Tentatively, I accepted her apology, but made it clear trust would take time to rebuild. It was the first honest conversation we'd ever had. As the holiday season continued, our little apartment felt like a safe haven again. My anxiety lifted. I woke up with a lighter heart. Standing my ground had exacted a cost, but it returned my self-worth and renewed my marriage. To this day, Elaine and I remain civil. She's more careful with her words and visits now, and Eric has learned to speak up if she tries any manipulative tactics. Our marriage is stronger because we faced the storm together. In the end, Elaine didn't win. I did. I discovered that sometimes the greatest victories are claimed not through silent endurance, but through bold confrontation. The day I found my voice was the day I reclaimed my happiness, my marriage, and my peace of mind. And that, more than anything, is the sweetest revenge.